Take one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Studio Rat HQ podcast. My name is Stephen Couch, and I'm here with Derek Jablonski, Richard Kaplan, and a special guest, Max Cavalera. This podcast is mostly about records that were recorded at a studio in Malibu, California called Indigo Ranch, where Max recorded with Richard. And we're pleased to have our special guest, but let me just give you a couple bits of information. If you are listening to this podcast, you can watch the video at youtube.com/StudioRatHQ. You can also follow us and ask questions and post comments at facebook.com/StudioRatHQ. And the audio is available to download at iTunes or our website, which is StudioRatHQ.com.
Now, Studio Rat HQ is one word, StudioRatHQ.com.
So, Max, thanks for joining us again. You recorded 2 records with Richard, Roots, Bloody Roots.
Actually 3. We did Animal also.
That's true. But that was more of a production side instead of actually recording, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So let's go to Roots. Derek and I, of course, purchased that album. I didn't know Richard at the time, so I was a huge fan. I actually saw Sepultura play with Ministry and Helmet on the Chaos AD tour. I don't know if you recall.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That was a fantastic show.
That's the tour. That's the tour I puke on Eddie Vedder. I got famous on the tour for that. You know.
Oh, man. I didn't know that.
Bad credit.
The particular show I saw, actually, Helmet was not able to play, so you and Ministry played extra long shows.
Oh, they had an accident, right?
Yeah, they did. Their van broke down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Great show. I love that show, by the way. So let's go to Roots. One of the first questions I had for both you and Richard was that one of the landmarks of the Roots album that was astounding to everybody was that you mixed in world sounds. You brought in flavors from your home country there, Brazil, and you added them to a heavy metal format or thrash or whatever, however you want to word it. Was that preconceived going in, or was that something when you arrived at Indigo you said, I want to do this, or how did that happen?
Well, I had an idea for Roots. It was kind of a vision, and was to record a really heavy record and introduce Brazilian elements to it. And at some point, in one song, we're going to go to a tribe and record with a Brazilian tribe. That was kind of like the whole idea for the record. And then we were talking with Monty at Roadrunner, and he was helping us set up. And he's the one that actually told us about Indigo. And, was like, I found this studio. It's really awesome. And Megadeth recorded there, Korn recorded there, and it's in Malibu, and we were like, really? That's cool. That should be awesome, Yeah. We imagined the beach right away,
So Richard, on your end, you hear this band Sepultura is coming in. What had you known previously? Had you heard?
I was thrilled. I loved Sepultura. Chaos AD was a landmark album.
That was my first metal album.
And Max mentions the fact that the band went to Brazil to a small tribe and literally had to backpack out there, from what I understood.
Yeah.
And I remember you had to take microphones with you that would not require the regular studio powering that microphones require. And the microphone that I'm using for this podcast, a Sony ECM56, I remember, because it has a battery in it, I remember renting this to the project to use as the main mic out in the wilderness. And I still love this mic. It's sitting in front of me now for the podcast. And then, of course, you did the album at Indigo. It was my first time seeing you in person. I had heard your music, and I was amazed when you pulled out your guitar and I thought you were in the process of restringing it because there were only 4 strings on it.
Right.
And I thought, well, you know, aren't you going to finish restringing your guitar? Because to me, it always sounded like instead of 4 strings, that you were playing something with 20 strings because your sound was so enormous.
Oh, yeah.
It never occurred to me that it was even possible to get something with 4 strings. But of course, what you did is you got rid of the two strings that would have just been in the way and made the most of what you had there as a completely unique style of playing and that enormous signature sound that you had. So that was my first impression.
Max, do you remember your rig at the time that created that huge sound?
Well, I remember that the 4-string story really came down. I was in Brazil and beginning of Sepultura, and 1 string broke, and then I didn't care much about it. And then the 2nd string broke, and my roadie was like, all right, we don't have that much money. We got money for beer, or we can buy a new pack of strings. And I was like, go get some beer. Let's get drunk. Leave the guitar with 4 strings. It's awesome. I'll just make it work with 4 strings. And then I decided mentally that would be good for me to try to get only had 4 strings to make my work, only with 4 strings, kind of like forcing myself to use the guitar in that way, that I only have 4 strings. I have to make the best out of this situation with only 4 strings. And it's a kind of a punk thing too. I always thought it was kind of punk rock not to have the little strings. And
yeah,
my guitar company kind of freaked out when I first went to ESP, and I told them that you're gonna have to make guitar with 4 strings. And they suggested that they make a smaller neck.
Right.
But I don't think that would look good. You know, I think it's cool to have the spot open. You know.
Yeah.
Plus, it would have felt unnatural to you to play it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like playing a ukulele or something. You know, you had a full-size guitar. You just had 4 strings on it.
Like I used to the ears. Like I used to the 4 strings, and it becomes like natural. You know, for me, it's natural now to play 4 strings.
Yeah.
Don't baritone guitars actually have smaller necks?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know Wes Borland had one. So I've never
played a baritone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So where were you living at the time? Were you down in Brazil at the time it came to record Roots, or were you?
No, I was in Phoenix, Arizona.
So you just got on a plane or literally drove to Malibu and showed up?
For Roots, we flew. For Soulfly, we made the pilgrimage. You know, we had a van,
Right.
And it was all of us. You know, came. It was really cool, man. It was like that rock and roll spirit. Let's get in a van, drive to the studio, and let's conquer this thing. You know, and so that was Soulfly. But Roots, we flew in and we stayed at the Malibu Beach Inn.
Wow. Okay.
We could have stayed. We could have stayed at the studio because I know you have rooms there, right, Richard? You got.
Yeah. We call it the Holiday Indigo.
The Holiday Indigo, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, we decided to stay by the beach and have the Malibu Beach Inn. It was a really good place. We had a room with the ocean view, and
yeah, I think some of the roadies stayed at the ranch though.
They did, right?
Yeah.
So you took a full crew, and then how was it? It's all been publicly discussed, so I'm not going to go any further on it. But was Sepultura enjoying the process? Were there tensions? Was it a bit of both, or was it just let's get this record made and do the best we can?
I think we're very excited. You know, we're coming out of Chaos AD. It was a big success on that record, and I think artistically we're really onto something with the whole Roots idea, which. The first time I actually mentioned to my record label, they did not like the idea. They thought the name sounded like a reggae compilation.
I could see that.
That's what the Roadrunner owner told me. Like, and then when I mentioned him the idea to go to Brazil, record it with the Indians, like he went bananas. Like, why does a metal band with a bunch of naked Indians? How's that gonna work? You know, that's not gonna work. And I'm like, trust me, it will work.
Yeah,
we'll make it work. You know, and I explained to him that once we put that name in our record, in a metal record, it will sound different. It will look different than a reggae band.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens, you know.
Well, you
And
guys,
Roots, Bloody Roots was
yeah,
the extra bit to the name that really made it sound heavy.
and
It was a little.
you guys were
Gotta
the
put
only
Black
ones doing
Sabbath,
it.
you know.
You guys were the only one doing it, which was great. You know, you brought
Yeah.
We had,
something to American cultural music that no one else was doing.
It was really fun because we could really explore the studio because we had the canyon, you know, and we really
Right.
the canyon jam sessions were amazing because we had Brown, a Brazilian percussionist, amazing percussionist, with us, and we all went to the canyon and we set up microphones all through, even in the bottom of the canyon, to capture the echo, the natural echo.
I remember Chuck went down to the bottom of the canyon.
Yeah.
We had to get extra mic cables to run down another 500 feet to the bottom of the canyon so that we could get natural echo.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you guys did that percussion piece
It was like
out
50
on the edge of the cliff.
Wait a minute. You ran it to you didn't take a portable unit, Richard? You guys ran it?
No, we rented a huge snake from Audio Rents
Mm-hmm.
so that we could put the guys out at the edge of the canyon and snake everything back into the control room so that we had ultimate control using the Indigo recording console, because there was nothing portable that we could get that had that kind of enormous sound.
Right.
And the guys went out to the edge of the cliff, and we had mics down in the bottom of the canyon.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so badass. That canyon was so beautiful and perfect, and really inspiring. In fact, the noise that you hear in the beginning of Roots is actually Carlinhos Brown throwing a piece of percussion in the canyon.
Right.
So there's a minute of silence, and then you hear a crack.
Right.
That crack is a piece of percussion hitting the bottom of the canyon.
It almost sounds like a tree is breaking or something.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So that's a metal object, like this little, being thrown into the canyon and hitting the ground, and then it makes the crack sound, and then the music starts. You know,
Awesome.
which
That
was
is
great.
awesome.
You know?
Yeah, that behind the scenes, you know.
And then there's like airplanes flying at some points of the percussion jam. You can hear.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the airplanes is actually inside one of the songs in one of the drum jams that we did. In the middle of the song, you can hear the airplane going by, which is so cool.
Yeah, that is. How long?
We did not hire the airplane, by the way.
Yeah, right.
that was not
you guys
even
brought
contract.
you guys brought some percussion instruments with you that were totally unique that I had never seen before, and I thought having worked with a lot of famous percussionists, had seen pretty much everything. But you guys had some native instruments that were just amazing.
Yeah, Carlinhos was really into it, and a lot of the stuff he made it.
Right.
A lot of it was handmade instruments, and I just had learned to play the berimbau a couple years before that. I picked it up before Chaos AD, and I started playing.
And you used it quite a bit too.
I use a lot. It was really, it became my thing. Like the guys in the band joke with me first, because when I first started playing, they were joking with me like, "Oh, you're too white to play this." There's only black guys in Brazil play the berimbau, and they give me shit for playing the berimbau. And I told them, I'm gonna be good at this thing. You just watch. And I practice a lot, and I got quite good at it.
Yeah,
we use at the beginning of Attitude. Attitude is all the berimbau. So it was fun. It was fun. I really I loved the whole vibe of the studio. It was so. We felt so comfortable. There was no, like, a lot of times you go make a record and there's a lot of stress in the studio and situations like that. And Indigo Ranch just felt so home. It felt really good. The pressure was only on the music side. Everything else, every time I needed a break, you just go take a walk in the canyon and your mind is cleared. And you come back and resolve the problem of a lyric that you had or whatever. It was a perfect place to make a record.
And I think that's probably why you came back to me to do Soulfly,
Right.
because we had such a good time, and it was such a the sound was like, you hear one of those albums on the radio, and I don't care what song comes before or after it, there's a jump out of the speakers ferociousness to the sound of your records.
I was living in Eastern Europe. You were mentioning you were going to go tour there. I was living there, and I had roots, and I was already a musician and into music and listening to all different types of music, and it was astounding. And two quick questions. I'm just going to say this: Chaos AD is one of the best album titles I have ever heard.
Yeah.
For some reason, those words just where did you come up with that title?
That's actually comes from Misfits, because Misfits had an album called Earth AD,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and I really love Misfits, and I was to me our record sounded like chaos. That record was really chaotic sounding with songs like Propaganda and Territory, really political stuff, Refuse and Resist.
Right.
And actually, the name of the record was Propaganda for the whole time we were in the studio in England. I was going to call it Propaganda. And then on the last day of the recording, the name came true. And then I announced it, it's going to be called Chaos AD, and everybody loved it. Like, oh, it's a great name,
It's a great name.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
You were mentioning with the Roots recording that you were able to, that there was a low amount of pressure. And one of the things that Richard always talked about was because Indigo was sort of out of the way, record company reps couldn't show up there every other day and listen to what's happening.
We were pretty much on our own. Yeah, we were unhassled by the outside world.
Yeah.
So, bands would come in and they're not so much with you guys because you were just like great guys from the start, but a lot of bands who had big egos and, thought that they were just the greatest thing and that all their groupies were going to show up and the paparazzi were going to be there, and they get to the Indigo and it's like, it takes them a couple of days to adjust to the fact that they've just got to be regular people.
Yeah.
Just to survive up there. But you guys fit in so immediately. It was like a tight fit. I remember the first time I met your wife, Gloria, and I'm a little bit maybe not a little bit, a lot colorblind. And
literally, not figuratively.
Yeah, and I knew her hair was a different color, but for the longest time I thought she had red hair, that brightly dyed red color. And then my wife said to me, "No, it's green." And it was like, oh, because green is my difficult color. And and then I could, when I knew mentally that it was green, I could see it. And she was such an important part of everything that happened too. And you guys, still, I've got a card sitting somewhere on the table here that we send each other cards regularly, Christmases and birthdays and stuff. And how she was an important part of everything, making arrangements and doing things, and that it's just nice to have a relationship that's continued and on into your kids and stuff like that. And I notice now that Zion is playing drums with you.
Yeah.
And I remember when Zion was born, I have a thing up on the wall here that you signed that says to Richard from Max, and it's a picture of you holding Zion as a baby.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that picture.
I think I have that picture on my iPad. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I think
and now he's playing drums with you. It's just it's so great to have relationships that last that long, and where father and son can share that kind of music there's something about sharing music that's different than going fishing or going, to the beach or doing something else. Music. There's a soul to music that doesn't exist anywhere else.
And I remember one of the first things that impressed me was the amount of gear that you had there. You had all this cool.
I was a gear slut.
You had all these cool old amplifiers everywhere.
Yeah.
We're looking around and it was like, oh my God.
There's the picture. Can you see it, Max?
Yes.
Hey, Max.
Those actually was Roadrunner make those pictures, and they are supposed to be like band pictures. And I was so excited with the birth of my son that I was like, can you guys make a picture of me and my son and send out like a band promo picture? and they did it. They're like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll do it.
Well, I framed it, and it's still on my wall.
Yeah.
It's a treasured piece to me. And you mentioned all the gear. Indigo, at the time that you were there, must have had more than 300 guitar amplifiers and close to 700 pedals. By the time I retired, we had 400 guitar amps or so, and more than 800 pedals.
I would leave my Coke cans on top of each one of those amplifiers.
Right.
I bet Richard loved that.
All through the day, you find Max Coke cans everywhere.
That's true, and I think there's still some little circles on some of them, but
I love the
purpose of having the gear was so that you could do stuff like that, and so that you could play through different amps and get some different sounds, which you guys did.
We have
mostly you. Andreas was pretty much stuck with his Mesa rig, which I remember I helped him repair one time, the rack, and I was amazed at the way that Mesa built their stuff. It didn't surprise me that I had to repair it.
Right.
And then it was the only time that I ever built one of those tube bigger muffs so that you guys could take it on the road with you and have a hard bypass on it so that it wouldn't squeal through the rest of the song.
Oh, man.
And that was one of the few. A lot of people over the years asked me to build one, but it was only for Sepultura and Andreas that I ever did that. A couple other pedals I just wanted to mention that I found that amongst my collection of stuff that I still have that were unique to your session. One was a Russian pedal, a distortion pedal made by a company called Trio, and we used that as one of the distortion pedals because distortion was really the signature of all of the band's sound.
It's got a very distinct distorted sound.
Well, we used a number of different distortion pedals. Another one that we used, which was a pedal that never was in popularity, but I had happened to get one at Guitar Center, and I was determined that it was going to get onto the Soulfly album, was the DOD death metal pedal.
I remember those.
I mean, you could hardly give this pedal away because it was kind of too much for most bands, and we plugged it in, and it was an immediate take, as was another real unique pedal by Goodrich, which this is the only one I've ever seen that we used, and we were able to get a number of unique distorted sounds that at least in my mind, contributed to the three albums that we were able to work on together. And
Max,
I know it was fun for the players to be able to have access to all those pedals and amps.
Yeah, I remember the floor was covered with pedals.
Right,
it was
right.
like a sea of pedals, right? But in front of the
front of the
mixing
console.
board.
Yeah.
It was all these pedals in the floor, and it was like.
And you could daisy chain any of them that you wanted together to get, even if it was just for three notes turning around from a chorus back to the verse, you could get a unique sound for those three notes, and then have a distinctly different sound for the verse, and then yet another sound for the chorus. And
so it's kind of like kids in a candy land. And
kidding.
You have all this candy around to make use of it, you know.
That's right.
And the other thing I really loved was the Battleship mic.
Oh yeah,
the Battleship mic.
The Battleship mic.
Stephen, right now,
I'm using it.
Is using that as the mic for this Skype call.
Yep, there it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Did you sing lead vocals into this, Max?
I tried to buy that. Remember? I asked you, say, can I buy that? And you're like, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Or it's part of the studio, And I was like, no way, I gotta have that. Every chance I had it, I was like, I look at Ross like, is it Battleship time?
Yeah.
Every time I put distortion, it's like Battleship time.
We use that oftentimes with guitar pedals in the chain for distortion or various effects on the vocals. But we also use that mic sitting underneath the drummer's chair. I remember on Soulfly with Roy, I put that mic underneath his drum stool for kind of a drummer's perspective room sound. Because I always figure if the drums don't sound good to the drummer in the room, it doesn't matter what you do miking wise, you're never going to get the sound that they want. Yeah. And once he's satisfied with the sound, then you can mic the kit. And I remember sticking that under his drum stool so that it would have the sound that he was hearing, and that was our room mic sound.
Wow. I always loved that Battleship mic, and I tried to use if it was only up to me, I would have sang the whole record on the thing, and it would have been a whole distorted vocal on our whole record, which wouldn't be right. But every chance I had, I remember I would always look at Rod like, can we get the Battleship mic now? Please, can we get it? All right, let's go.
I think it was good that you used the Battleship mic where it was really called for, and that I think you did most of your other vocals into a Telefunken 251 for the clean sound. Right. And in retrospect, it makes such a fine contrast to be able to have both of those on the record that it would have been probably a mistake to do everything in the Battleship mic, even though it was fun to sing to.
Hey, Richard, can you tell the listeners or the viewers a little bit about that Battleship mic, just in case? I know we've mentioned it in another podcast, but just in case they didn't hear it.
It's an actual mic from the gunnery deck of a battleship. Although you see that mic used for other purposes, I've even seen it on the presidential podium when they have like 30 mics in front of the president and they're just strung along in front of him. That'll usually be one of them back in the 50s or thereabouts. But I got it as a mic from the gunnery deck of a battleship, and the reason they used it and the reason that it was so great on distorted vocals is it would withstand the sound pressure of a gun going off right next to it. And by a gun, I mean a 50 millimeter cannon.
Right.
So no matter how close Max got to the mic and how loud he would sing, you couldn't. The distortion was something that we added in later, although the mic had its own unique characteristic.
Man, yeah, that's so awesome.
But I remember you telling that story. You told me that story in the studio, and that made me even more desirable.
More, yeah.
Now I really gotta have it. Yeah. After you told me it comes from a battleship, come on.
Yeah. Yep.
I gotta have this thing.
What's to stop someone from reproducing another microphone like that for anybody?
Well, nothing really. RCA owned the patents on it, But now, this many years later, anybody could make that mic. It was a unique mic, and it had an enormous capsule. Most mics.
I'll show it again. I'll show it again, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, look at it compared just to the size of your head. The whole mic in there, that's the capsule that you're seeing behind the grill. That's a very large capsule. Most mics have either a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, or you know, the big studio vocal mics have the biggest capsule you'll ever see is a 1 inch, and that thing is probably close to 3 inches.
Yeah, about 2 inches, 2.5 inches.
I never asked you, how did you get that mic?
I got it, I believe, through my uncle who was in the Navy, a career Navy officer, and he knew that I had a recording studio, and he brought me this microphone that he said, "I bet you've never seen one of these before." And I was like, "No, I've never seen anything like that. Does it work?" And he said, "Well, it was working when it was on the ship, and they decommissioned this battleship, and I was able to bring it home." So I don't know if it was something that he just brought home in his duffel bag or what, but it certainly got used in the studio.
Max, here's another thing that Richard, Derek, and I talked about on some of the other records, and I'm going to ask both you and Richard this. One of the things that Richard did, for example, with Korn, was he took a very small tube, low wattage amp, and he hid it from the band.
Was it even tube?
Yeah,
Yes, always
tube. Yeah,
okay, okay.
Did that happen with Roots and with Soulfly, or were the amps? He wasn't trying to deceive the band, but he kept it in another room to create a very distorted tone, which was not what they were used to with their large heads and cabinets. Did you happen to use that small amp? Do you know if it was used or not? Or is that, Richard, do you remember?
Was it used?
It was used extensively on Soulfly.
Okay.
But I don't think that I ever got it past Ross in the Sepultura recording. And
man.
My only reason for using it was that it would allow the guitarist to get his unique sound on his amp, and then we would have another little tiny, usually an 8-inch speaker, 3-tube 50s K or Harmony or Silvertone or something like that, hidden away in one of the little closets with a mic in front of it, and record it so that we had another tone. And oftentimes, even though the guitarist would be going for an extreme sound at his amp, the little tube amp turned up. It usually only had one control. It wouldn't even have a tone control. It would just have a volume control, and you'd turn it up to 10, and just let it blaze away, hidden away in a closet. And by virtue of being turned up all the way, you were getting both the distortion of the tube and the distortion of this tiny little 8-inch speaker that when used instead of the guitarist's sound that he was getting, but used in addition to it, would give a fullness that if a lot of guitarists didn't want you to, they were so stuck on their own unique sound that they would never allow that. So I would usually just hide it away, and which I had, being the engineer on Soulfly, I had the privilege of being able to do that. Whereas on Sepultura, although I did have engineering credits and certainly helped out with the engineering, it was basically Ross's doing as to what he wanted up, and I didn't have that privilege at that time. Although I did do it with a number of other of his productions. Sepultura, I was so impressed with the sound of Chaos AD. I knew you guys had it. You guys had a handle on getting that great huge sound. And along with the Indigo console and tape machines, I knew that it was going to be there.
But I'm glad that you did for Soulfly. Even though I'm just finding out right now.
Yeah, it's a little late.
It's still a great surprise.
Most fans will never know.
Yeah.
So,
but I love stuff like that because I'm against the kind of purity of some musicians that are just want to do things one way. And I remember I almost had to actually get a gunpoint in Andrea's head to tune down to B, because we wanted that low sound,
Right,
you know.
right. Which was just really coming into popularity at that time. Nobody had ever done that before.
So
and I really loved the sound of the Korn record, and it was tuned low, you know. And I thought for me it was really interesting because we really are Sepultura was very different from Korn, and I think that's why it would have been cool to use the low tuning, because our riffs were actually different from their riffs.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Would actually work. And I think that's why Roots is such an interesting record, is because we borrow an idea from a different band and put it into work into our world, and make it into something totally new and that people haven't heard it before. And to me, one of the best stories I heard so far is going to be on the book that actually is going to come out next month or so, was the intro that Dave Grohl wrote for the Roots Bloody Roots book. And he told the story that he had $50,000 speakers for Foo Fighters put it in his studio, and he popped in the Roots album and blew up the $50,000. Instantly blew up. So $50,000 down the drain because of the Roots record, and I love that story.
Well, I gotta
and you know that you could turn it up as loud as you could stand at Indigo.
Yeah,
and there was, our system was bulletproof.
Yeah, I remember we used to nickname the big speakers. We nicknamed them Manowar level.
Yes,
because the Manowar.
You had a little sign that you would stick on the control room back door that said Man of War levels. You remember that? There was an actual thing that we would paste on the door so that somebody wouldn't accidentally walk in and blow themselves up.
Jeez.
Exactly.
That only people with really bulletproof ears would go in and listen at those levels.
And I really love, because I love the fact also that you let us do whatever we felt comfortable. You let me build my, my shrine inside the vocal booth with a statue that my mom gave me, which is a Hindu statue, and I had all this religious stuff, and I don't know of any other musicians that do that, but that was my thing. That was my inspiration.
You guys brought a lot of little things with you. I remember you brought a Brazilian flag that we hung, a great big one, and that vocal booth, up until the day Indigo closed, was known as the Sepultura vocal booth because it didn't exist before you guys got there. We had set up a couple of those big sound deflecting gobos with the plexiglass windows that pulled up, and set them in kind of a triangle in the back of the room. And it worked out so well that we had Chuck, who was kind of a master gadgeteer and Rube Goldberg carpenter, solidify it, and that became the Sepultura vocal booth.
Yeah,
and you started that.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you. And then I thought it was so cool too on it's the end of No Hope, No Fear on the first Soulfly. When it's fading in, you gotta hear it with headphones, and you gotta crank it real loud. But you hear all of us doing a Chuck chant. We're all going Chuck, Chuck. Yeah. Chuck was such a hero.
I'll have to listen back at that.
Yeah. You gotta get put in headphones and turn it real loud, and in the very, very end, you hear a Chuck chant.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Well, let's start talking about the Soulfly record. Roots goes out; it's a huge success. Sepultura breaks up. Then you say to yourself, "I'm putting a new band together." What happened?
It was a crazy time. Everything was upside down. I was not with Sepultura anymore, and took me a while to get back on my feet. And one of the first things I did, which was really cool, was actually Ozzy invited me to his house in England when he heard about the split. And that's how cool Ozzy it is, that he wanted to encourage me to go on my own path and my own career. And he invited me to his house, and he gave me this great speech in his living room, like, you know, you got to get up. It's up to you to get back up there and do your thing. And you don't need those guys and this and that, you know, and I was really inspired by that. And so I went back home after going to Ozzy's house, and I grabbed my 4-string guitar and I started writing, man. I wrote a demo that had Eye for an Eye and No. And I walk in the Roadrunner office in New York with this cassette demo for Monty. I say, Monty, play that shit in your office right now. Real loud. It's real shitty. It's going to sound like shit. But there's a soul in there. There's a heart in that recording. Yes. And he played it real loud, and he loved it. And it was like the beginning of it, you know. And we start talking where you want to go, and we both agree, let's go to Indigo. The magic was there, you know. We did the Roots album there. Let's go back and redo the magic all over again and make it happen. And like I say, it was so cool because we organized this kind of pilgrimage. We had our cars. We drove from Phoenix, and we all got in our cars with the babies. And Igor was just born, right? And Zion was like 3 years old or 4 years old, and we all drove and we stopped in the desert. And before that, Lucio, which was the guitar player, a great Brazilian guitar player from my favorite band in Brazil called Nação Zumbi. And he was hired by me to be the guitar player of Soulfly. And he came over, and he was living in Phoenix for a month while we practiced, and we wrote most of the Soulfly record. And yeah, the idea came. I think it was a really good band. Roy was an amazing drummer.
Oh yeah,
yeah, killer. He could do the stuff like Igor, you know, and
a nice guy too. I really like.
I think Roy. He's with Stone Sour currently.
Stone Sour now, yeah. And you know, Marcelo was playing bass, and
was great bass player.
Which I contacted him today because he's been leaving posts on the pictures that we've been posting on the website of you guys in the studio. And
really? I'd love to get back to him.
Yeah.
So we did this pilgrimage, and it felt really cool to be back there. For me, it was great. You know, it was really revisiting a place where I knew something really good was made. You know, Roots was a success around the world. Yeah. Right. And for my surprise, Soulfly went gold in America before Roots. So Soulfly was even more successful than Roots in a weird way.
Well,
you mentioned gold, and you know something? It's one of both of those albums. I did a lot of gold albums. Those are two albums that I never got a gold record for. That if you have any influence with Roadrunner anymore, I would sure love a copy with my name on it.
You need one. I'm gonna let them know.
I really do need that on my wall because I'm so proud of those records.
And you know, one of the reasons in my crazy mind that I think that Soulfly went gold, it was because we buried the tapes in the Indigo Ranch ground.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember that?
What?
We buried the master tapes on the ground in the ground of Indigo Ranch because I wanted to capture the earth of the studio.
Yeah,
the dirt.
The soul of the ground.
Yeah.
Indigo Ranch. Not many people know. I know you know, Max, but Indigo Ranch was in a canyon called Solstice Canyon. And the reason it got its name Solstice Canyon is because the Chumash Indians, who had been the original occupants of all of that part of Malibu, had come to celebrate their holiest of holidays, the summer and winter solstice, the day when the sun turned around, at Indigo Ranch. And there were two notches in the mountain across from the canyon where you did the percussion, one of which, if you were standing there, the sun would set during the winter solstice, and the other notch would be where the sun would set during the summer solstice. And I can remember in the very early days when it was just me and Michael Pender, my original partner from the Moody Blues, up there, and he had made contact through somebody with what was left of the Chumash Nation, and they came to Indigo with their drums to do a solstice drumming festival
so cool.
on Solstice Day.
Wow.
And they set up their drums on the front lawn in front of the studio, and we ran, our best mics out there with pop shields on them because there was a little bit of wind.
That's awesome.
And I remember I was in the studio and we were setting up, and just like you do with most bands, most drummers, you say, play a little bit so that we can, get the level set and get the EQs set and, get everything ready to record. But they didn't understand us, and they started playing, and we started setting things up and, EQing it and getting the levels so that they'd be right to go to tape. And then I sent an assistant out to the guys on the front lawn and said, okay, we're ready to start. Well, all of a sudden, the whole aura and tone of everything changed, and everything got real uptight and heavy, and I didn't know why. And the chief comes walking into the studio with his arms folded in front of him, and he says, "You cannot play that song twice in 1 year." And I said, "Oh, well, as you were,
Sorry about
keep
that."
going." And he said, "Well, you don't have that song, though, if you're just ready to start now." Well, as it worked out, I was rolling a TIAC 4-track, little 1/4-inch home machine during the whole setup process.
So you got it.
So we had it on tape, but you can hear us changing the levels and EQs and stuff. And we had to, on the final copy that we made for him, we had to reverse engineer it. When we were, adding some high end to something, we had to at the same time be bringing the EQ back to original so that the whole thing sounded seamless, like we weren't doing anything. And where we were raising or lowering the level, you had to do the exact opposite in the mix down. But we did get it.
Was either that or wait a whole year for them to come back, right?
And I don't think we'd have had the same vibe again.
Yeah.
But that was a magic experience. And you picked up, I don't know, if it's your roots or what, but you picked up on that Indigo soul when you buried those tapes. And,
and I remember the funniest thing was Andy Wallace mix Roots.
Yes.
In New York, and Andy's in a high-end studio in New York, and I get a phone call from Andy, and he's like, "Max, what the fuck? All this shit is dirty. There's dirt all over these fucking tapes. What happened here?"
Oh man, that's a
then
great story.
The dirt was on the boxes rather than the tapes themselves. We kept the tapes protected.
Yeah, we did protect. We took a little bit of care. It was not
a little bit.
not entirely careless.
So Max, I got a two-part question for you. One, the actual album cover of you from the first Soulfly album. Where was that taken?
Portugal.
Okay.
Yeah, in the coast.
I've always wondered that. This album for me was huge because I was a fan. I had Chaos AD, and I was a fan, but I was also moving into the nu metal thing with Korn and Limp Bizkit at that time, and of course Deftones. And I didn't realize you were the singer of Soulfly, so when I found this album and I connected all the dots, it was really cool. I just wanted to say, you got a lot of folks who came on this album and were just guest starring. So they would come on
including guys from Korn and Limp Bizkit.
Of course.
Yeah, well, it started on Roots because on Roots we did Look Away with Mike Patton and John.
Oh my God.
And
That's
John
right.
was so freaked out because Mike was there, and Mike was John's hero,
Yeah.
And I remember John was very nervous and very shy, and he kept eating his hair.
Yeah.
Every time I look at him, he had his hair in his mouth.
Yeah. So I guess
but that was a great set because I remember Mike Patton showing up in the studio with a suitcase, and I was like, Mike, what's in the suitcase? And he opened up and he has a some kind of echo box thing for his voice, for
Right.
echo, and a bottle of red wine. And he told me those are the two things he needs for the recording of his voice:
Uh-huh.
the red wine and the echo box.
That's
Yeah.
I guess
As if Indigo didn't have enough echo boxes.
Right. Yeah.
the second part of the question is kind of now you've actually spoke to a lot. Let me see. I got a list here of the people that have been on different records with you, or you've been on their records. Who would you say is the most memorable artist that you've collaborated with?
That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, because you got a
so
lot
many.
of solid players. Got a lot of great people.
Put me on the spot there. You know, I have to say, for me, one of the coolest things that I think was done was actually Sean Lennon on Primitive.
Right.
Just because of the vibe and being a son of a Beatle, it was just like
Seriously.
it was real heavy. And Sean is such a good guy. He's just so down to earth. He's completely opposite of what you expect a son of a Beatle to act like. I think if somebody was the son of John Lennon, it could be the biggest headed guy in the world.
Sure,
I'm John Lennon's son.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Everybody
Do you know who
else
I am?
feel like-
My
yeah.
hopes, And
He
he's
had a
not
lot
like
of
that
his
at all.
dad's vibe. Just
Even
like, I'll bet Zion has a lot of your vibe.
yeah, so it was like
as a musician.
he picked up a couple bad manners and good manners. Hopefully more good manners. And I remember Sean didn't want to stay in a hotel. That was one of his things. Like, he wanted to stay in my house. And I was like, well, if you can put up with kids waking up at 7 in the morning and dogs barking, and it's not going to be very comfortable. And he's like, I don't care. I'd rather stay in your house. It'd be cooler if we just stay in your house and we jam in your backyard and ride.
Life on Cavalera's terms.
Exactly.
That's
So
awesome.
that was one of the coolest. I have to say the Look Away jam, me, Mike, and John, that was pretty bombastic, man. The end of that song, because it was the three of us on the ground in the Indigo Ranch, each one with one mic, making the most absurd noises that we could think of it. So Mike is sounding like a monkey or a raped monkey.
Right.
John is doing I don't even know what kind of sound, and I'm just making crazy words that are not even English, and it was exciting. It was definitely exciting. It was like the three of us in the ground, just rolling and screaming, and it was a magic moment.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's really
Absolutely.
cool. That is really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So the Soulfly record, going back to that, obviously had different personnel, and you had said you loved the vibe. Was it able to? Were you able to maintain that vibe with the second record? Did you have the same?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I think it was awesome. I love everything about the recording of first Soulfly. Indigo was the perfect place. We have a lot of cool guests coming in. We had Benji from at that time was Dub War. When he had the raga thing and sang on Prejudice, and we had the guys from Fear Factory,
right.
Dino. Oh yeah.
Dino, on Eye for an Eye and Bert, and then Ross brought Fred from Limp Bizkit, and I really didn't know much of Limp Bizkit at that time, and Ross like, I got a guy that can really do something cool for this song, and little I knew that next year they were the biggest thing in the planet.
No kidding. No
So
kidding.
and what he did on Bleed was amazing. I really love Fred's word, and the vibe that he put on Bleed was really killer. So, and then we had the percussionists from Brazil, the two guys from Nação Zumbi with the big drums that we recorded outside.
Right. With big sticks.
Yes, yeah, and that's really how they play in their own band in Brazil. Most of their the band is formed of three. They're called slave drums, and they're just big, kind of like round, big drums.
Yeah.
And the drummer only have a snare and a cymbal and a kick drum. It's like a jazz drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the format that the band is operates. And I wanted to incorporate that with Soulfly. So in a lot of songs you hear the slave drums and stuff like boomba and umba bara uma, and it's mostly the Brazilian stuff, that continue on Soulfly 1, which was great. And I really loved the sessions. It was really, really relaxed and fun. And all the guys really loved it. Everybody had a great time. And Lucio was an amazing guitar player, kind of Jimi Hendrix style. He could play a lot of Hendrix, and it was so different to have that guitar player in a metal project.
Right.
I remember with the drums, Chuck made a drumstick for one of the guys out of a big branch from a tree behind the Indigo studio, and
Cool.
it was just so amazing, that this big thing, would be used as a drumstick, and that he could wield it in time and make this enormous sound. It was
and that was also
so many unique things.
The Soulfly songs were born, the instrumental songs that are on every Soulfly record. So there's Soulfly 1, Soulfly 2, Soulfly 3, and so forth. It was born of an accident. It was just a jam session that we wanted to do outside, and we put candles. I remember Ross put candles everywhere.
Right, all those candles that we had.
And we light up full of candles and went outside and just did this beautiful acoustic jam. And then Lucio recorded his guitar backwards and reversed the tape, so his whole solo is backwards, but it goes perfect with the song. And Soulfly 1, the instrumental, was born in this kind of accident environment, which I love. I love when stuff like that happens in the record, like accidents that become trademarks or stuff like that. So that was a lot of good stuff on Soulfly 1 that was done in Indigo that I really enjoy, and it was, for me, it was awesome, from burying the tapes to using all the pedals, and now hearing the story of the amplifier, which makes
I remember turning the tape upside down and playing it backwards for that. That was something that so that you get that. There's no other way to get that sound that where the attack happens at the end of the note instead of at the beginning.
Right.
Of course.
And Lucio he created that out of his crazy mind, and he's like, "I'm gonna do the solo backwards, Max." I'm like, "Okay, go for it." I don't even have the strings. Why are you talking to me about that?
No kidding.
So when you these days with Soulfly, it's almost a family affair. Does your wife go on the road with you too, or is she?
Oh yeah, always.
So you got your son with you and your wife, and you go out and you've been doing shows throughout Europe, and you're going back. I think when Monday.
I think you're leaving tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow for 7 weeks.
In Europe, right?
Yeah.
And we also mentioned, not in this podcast, but you have a biography coming out. When does that come out exactly? Do you have a date, or I had read it was this month, so I wasn't sure.
No, it's gonna be around April.
Okay.
Yeah, they had some problems with a little bit delay. Like the book world is different from music worlds. It operates differently, and Gloria had to deal with all bunch of stuff that we never deal with it before. But it's really cool. It came out really good, and there's some real cool stories in it, and a lot of interesting facts, and there's some funny stories, there's some sad stories. It's all compiled, and there's an English guy that wrote it called Joe MacGyver. He's a really good writer from England, and so we're looking forward to that. That comes out in around April in America, hopefully. And probably around the world, it's going to be translated to like 30 different countries.
Wow. Dang.
That's why we're looking at it right now. So it should be really good. It's already out in Brazil. For some reason in Brazil, the book, they got their shit together for the first time ever in the history.
In Portuguese, or?
Yeah. So it came out in Portuguese first and came out in Brazil, and it was really well received, and a lot of people like it a lot. So it's really cool.
Well, I'm hoping you'll send me a signed copy when it comes out here.
I will for sure.
I'll look forward to that. We're really grateful that you took your time to come on to this with us the day before you're leaving for a 7-week tour.
Yeah.
And is there anything more that we can say to help get the word out on the tour that you'll be doing? Are there dates in America that you would want to mention, or?
We don't have any dates for America yet. The only thing that's coming out in the States that I'm doing is the Killer BQ project with the Mastodon guys and the Richard Kaplan guys and Dave Illich, who's the Mars Volta drummer, is a great drummer.
Right.
And
Nice.
this thing came out fantastic, man. It's really killer. It's really different. It's got a lot of melodies. It's heavy and melodic at the same time, and it's gonna come out in May, so I'm very excited for that too.
Yeah.
Kind of a little off that subject. I was just kind of sitting here thinking. You said Jonathan. Okay, so Jonathan Davis did some guest stuff on Roots, and then on the Soulfly album, and you're going back out on the road with them, right?
Yeah.
So how did your relationship over the last 15 plus years with him? Have you guys kept in touch, or has it been kind of a hit or miss thing?
Yeah, we see each other from time to time in festivals, mostly. It's really cool, man. I mean, I love those guys, and there's it's always been great with us, and they offer us this tour. It's really great. It's 10 shows in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Siberia.
Wow.
There are shows in like middle of nowhere in Siberia,
Right.
which is gonna go crazy because both bands are very popular in Russia, Soulfly and Korn.
You're going to get an amazing turnout.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good, and I'm very excited. And my son is actually Zion is actually good friends with their new drummer. They keep in touch through internet and all this, the new technology that I'm a caveman. I'm not too much into I don't even have an iPhone, man,
Me neither.
Yeah, we were kind of hoping.
And one of the other things, one of the other guest stars was DJ Lethal.
Yeah.
And he grew up at Indigo as a little boy, about the age that Zion was when you were last there, with his father being a studio guitarist. So that was another added little bonus to the record.
No kidding.
Yeah, Derek was mentioning we've contacted Korn's management about getting a member from Korn to come on to do the podcast. We haven't heard back from them yet, but
well, it's their 20th anniversary since their debut album, that Richard did with them. So this would be the perfect time. That's the whole thing is.
I know they're real busy now too.
Yeah, especially going back out on this tour. But
we get it. They're busy on the road, but we just wanted to say again, thank you for your time and your efforts. We really appreciate it, and we're glad that you had the chance to come in and talk with us about what you're currently doing and these 2 great records that you recorded with Richard. So
no kidding. Great
and Max, give my love to Gloria and the family. We think about you guys a lot, and it was very exciting for us to make this happen.
Yes, thank you.
I send you on the road with all of my best wishes, and I'll be sending some vibes your way the whole time.
Awesome.
I know you're very perceptive, and you'll pick up on them here and there.
Great.
We wish you the best.
It was great seeing you guys, man.
Great to see you. I think Stephen will probably finish off with a couple more details about the podcast, and that'll be it.
Yeah, you just heard an exclusive interview with Max Cavalera of Soulfly and other projects, and we just like to say thank you for listening. If you are new to Studio Rat HQ, you can view us on youtube.com/Studio Rat HQ. You can also listen exclusively on iTunes if you just type in the 3 words Studio Rat and then HQ, will show up. But it's also available for download on our website, StudioRatHQ.com. And if
which is, I may mention, is one word,
yes.
StudioRatHQ.com,
exactly. And if you are on Facebook, you can look out for us at facebook.com/Studio Rat HQ, where we will post this audio and video. So if you scroll the page and like us, we'd appreciate that. And again, thank you for your time, Max. And as always, thank you, Derek and Richard. It's been an honor. It's been an honor.
No kidding. No kidding.
Same rat time.
Love and wishing you all the best.
Yep. All the best.
Take care, man.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.